Hello everyone, and welcome to the Middle Ages channel. Today, we're stepping back in time, not to the grand halls or the throne rooms, but to the real heart of the castle, the kitchen. This wasn't just a place to cook, it was a roaring, chaotic, and absolutely vital engine room that kept the entire castle running. So, grab a seat by the fire, and let's explore what life was really like in a medieval castle kitchen. First, let's talk scale. Forget your modern kitchen island. A great castle kitchen, especially one serving a powerful lord, was enormous. We're talking about a structure that was often separate from the main keep. Partly for safety, fire was a constant, terrifying risk. Imagine massive stone walls, a ceiling soaring high up, blackened with soot, and not one, but multiple gigantic fireplaces, some large enough to roast whole oxen on a spit. The air would be thick with smoke, steam, and 100 different smells, from roasting meat and baking bread to simmering herbs, and let's be honest, sweat and grime. Now, who worked here? The kitchen was a world of its own with a strict hierarchy. At the top was the master cook, a respected and well-paid professional. This person was more of a manager than a hands-on chef. They planned the menus, managed supplies, and oversaw a small army of staff. They had to be creative, resourceful, and capable of organizing feasts for hundreds, sometimes thousands, of people at a moment's notice. The master cook's reputation could make or break a lord's social standing. A lavish, well-cooked feast was a display of power and wealth. Below the master cook were specialized roles. You had the larderer, in charge of the larder, where all the meats, fish, and fats were stored. The pantler was the keeper of the pantry, responsible for bread, and the butler, not the modern kind, was in charge of the buttery, where ale and wine were kept. Then you had the bakers, the waferers, who made delicate sweet wafers for dessert, and the saucier, the master of sauces. Sauces were incredibly important in medieval cuisine, used to add flavor and disguise the taste of meat that might be a little past its prime. The bulk of the workforce, however, consisted of the kitchen boys, scullions, and turnspits. These were the lowest ranking members, and their jobs were grueling. Scullions spent their days scrubbing pots and pans with sand and water, their hands raw and chapped. And the turnspits? The job was one of the worst in the entire castle. They were often young boys who had to sit by the scorching fire for hours on end, manually turning the spits to ensure the meat cooked evenly. It was hot, monotonous, and thankless work. So what were they actually cooking? Forget the myth that medieval food was bland. It was bursting with flavor, especially for the nobility. Spices were a massive status symbol. Things like cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, ginger, and pepper were imported from the East at incredible expense. A dish loaded with spices screamed, "I am rich." Sugar was also a luxury, used not just in desserts, but also in savory dishes. They loved sweet and sour combinations. One very popular sauce was verjuice, a sour juice made from unripe grapes, which they would often sweeten with honey or sugar and mix with spices. Meat was the star of the show for the wealthy. They ate an astonishing variety, including beef, pork, venison, and all sorts of birds, from chickens and geese to more exotic fare like swans, peacocks, and herons. For a truly spectacular feast, these birds might be roasted and then redressed in their own feathers to look alive on the platter. Fish was also crucial, especially on Fridays and during Lent, when meat was forbidden by the church. They ate freshwater fish like pike and carp, and coastal castles had access to herring, cod, and shellfish. But what about the common folk? The kitchen staff and lower-ranking soldiers wouldn't be eating swan. Their diet was much simpler. It was based on what was known as pottage, a thick stew of grains, peas, and whatever vegetables were available, like onions, leeks, and cabbage. If they were lucky, it might have a bit of bacon or cheap cuts of meat for flavor. Bread was the other staple. The lord and his family would eat fine, white bread called manchet, while the servants ate a coarse, dark bread made from rye or barley, often called trencher bread. In fact, Stale slices of this bread were sometimes used as plates, which could be eaten afterwards or given to the poor. The pace in the kitchen was relentless, dictated by the castle's mealtimes. The main meal of the day was dinner, served around mid-morning between 10 a.m. and noon. A lighter meal, supper, was served in the late afternoon. This meant the kitchen staff were up before dawn, stoking the fires, butchering animals, and starting the slow cooking process for pottages and roasts. The day was a constant flurry of activity, chopping, grinding, stirring, and hauling. Imagine carrying huge cauldrons of boiling liquid or massive joints of meat. It was physically demanding and dangerous work. Burns, cuts, and scalds were a daily reality. The kitchen was also the castle's information hub. It was a noisy, crowded place where servants from all over the castle would come and go. Gossip and news traveled fast here. The cooks and scullions knew everything that was happening, from the lord's political plans discussed over dinner to the latest scandals among the courtly ladies. It was a place of community and camaraderie, but also one of tension and rivalry. A promotion from scullion to a cook's assistant was a huge step up. So the next time you imagine a medieval castle, don't just picture knights and ladies in the great hall. Picture the smoky, sweltering and chaotic world of the kitchen just beyond the walls. It was a place of incredible hard work, skill and creativity, a microcosm of the entire medieval social structure. It was the powerful, beating heart that fed the castle, and in doing so, kept its world turning. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the castle kitchen. I hope you found it as fascinating as I do. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Middle Ages channel for more deep dives into the past. Let us know in the comments what part of medieval life you'd like us to explore next. Thanks for watching.